One of the most frustrating things you can run into as a school district employee is trying to get a 403B going only to find out that the vendor or provider that you wanted to use isn't available in your school district. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to leave that problem by what you need to do to get a new 403B provider established in your school district. So if you're looking for a low-cost option like Vanguard, Aspire, or Fidelity, and your employer currently doesn't offer them, I'm going to give you the step-by-step guide on what you need to do to get those providers added to your approved 403B list so you and every other staff member in your district can begin using them. Now, this process really isn't all that hard. It just takes a little bit of understanding of how it all works and who needs to be involved in it all. Now, establishing new 403B plans is something that I've actually specialized and done a lot of in my earlier part of my career. When I started working with AXA Equitable back in 2015, our primary offering was 403B annuities, and the only way you could do that is you have to be a provider in the district. AXA didn't have much of a presence at all in Eastern Washington, so when I first started them, only Yakima and Kennewick and Natchez were approved, and by the time I left them, after my 3-year tenure, I had nearly every school district in Yakima County opened, pretty much all of the Tri-Cities, Moses Lake, Ellensburg, and a few others in Chelan County as well. So I've done this no less than 20 times, and I've seen every kind of rebuttal and things like that. So I'm gonna give you step-by-step how to overcome those as well. So the first and foremost, all you really need to do is ask payroll. So just go up to them and say, hey, I wanted to get a new vendor started in the district. So say it's Vanguard or Aspire. Hey, I want to get Aspire established in the school district to save for my 403B plan. We currently don't offer it. Is there any chance we can get that added? The best case scenario, if they say yep, they go ahead, fill the paperwork, and it gets added in a few days. I've had that happen only once in my career, and it was all done over the phone. I didn't even met with them in person. I just asked them plainly if I could get it added, give them kind of the rundown of how it should work, and it was done within a few days. So that's your best case scenario. Most commonly, you're going to run into some kind of headwind. Usually payroll or the business manager is going to say, like, we're not interested in adding a new provider this time. We already have a bunch. Why should we even bother adding one? Sometimes they'll tell you that you need to have more people interested in the plan. Now, the key here is Washington State actually has a rule. And the rule states that if we have at least 5 people interested in a certain provider, the school district has to add them as a provider. So it actually doesn't matter what the school district thinks or says. It doesn't matter if they have 100 different vendors. If 5 people show up, all saying they're interested in this one new provider, legally they have to add them as a provider for your school district. That's kind of your worst case scenario. If you run into that, you just need to have 5 people interested in the plan. So if you do run into the issue of needing to meet the requirement of 5 people, just find 5 friends or colleagues that are interested in starting a new 403B plan. And then all you need to do is to go to the payroll with a list of 5 people, and they should have no problem opening up from that point forward. Remember that the rule is 5, not 10. For some reason, 10 gets thrown around a lot with payroll departments. I've had it come back to me once before where they're adamant on 10. I forwarded them the RCW showing the 5, and literally within a couple of days, they had the vendor opened up. So it is the rule of 5 still. Oftentimes, some of the pushback, especially if you're an employee asking, you may not see the same kind of pushback as a third party coming in. But a lot of times, the reason why they don't want to add a new provider is it creates more work for them. They're kind of visiting other things, or really sometimes they just don't know how to do it, right? So honestly, it's a pretty easy process, and oftentimes payroll kind of blows out of proportion. All it really takes in order to establish a new vendor is you need to have a signed plan document. The plan document is usually provided by the new vendor. So if I'm trying to add on Aspire as an example, Aspire actually has a plan document that needs to be filled out, right? So, and filling it out isn't all that hard. You just need to kind of know the rules of what really is established with that school district. All those rules kept with the third-party administrator. So all they have to do is have the TPA and the vendor, call it Aspire in this case, talk to each other, and they can work together to get that form filled out. However, before the TPA even talk to Aspire, they need a verbal confirmation from the school district that it's okay to move forward. So verbal email would work as well. All the school district has to do is tell the TPA that, yes, we want to get this new added. Can you work with them to get it set up? They'll work together. The form goes to payroll or the business manager, and they sign off on it. The TPA will sign off on it. Vanguard or Aspire, whoever you're trying to add, also signs off on it, and then it's established within a few days from there. So from a payroll standpoint, it really doesn't take a lot of work on their end because they have a third-party administrator. All they have to do is to give the initial approval and then sign the form. And that's pretty much it as far as they're involved with. In the event that they don't have a third-party administrator, which at this point, I really don't know any school districts that don't, then there'd be more work on payroll at that point. But probably 95% or more of school districts in Washington are going to have a TPA already established that you can just kind of hand this thing off to. Now, if you're going through this process and your school district currently doesn't have a Roth 403B as an option, or if they already have it established, now's a good time to add it on. So if they don't have it already established, simply ask them. If they're going through the process of signing paperwork anyways, just say, hey, can we alter our plan document to allow Roth contributions? Usually that yes, no response. It doesn't cost the school district anything to do it. It's literally just on the plan document form. They just have to check Roth as an option. It's right next to the pre-tax option they checked originally when they set up the program. It's just one more checkbox, sign it again, done. Doesn't cost school district anything to do. So it's really no reason why they shouldn't, be able to do this for you. So if you're trying to get Roth as an option in your district, it's kind of the same process here. Now, if Roth becomes an option, first you have to alter the plan document, right? The governing document that controls all 403 vendors. That goes through first, and then the 403B would have to be adjusted for the Roth process. So if your school district already allows for Roth and you're adding this new vendor or provider as a 403B option, on that plan document that the TPA is going to work with, ask them to check the Roth option as well. That box has to be checked in order for Roth to be an option in the school district. Once everything's been established, then you can go ahead and submit your salary reduction agreement through payroll and begin funding. So to summarize it all up, first thing you do is ask. If they're nice, approve it right away. If not, you may have to get 5 people to come together to help you open up the plan. Once that's all done, it's time for paperwork. More often than not, the TPA and the provider will work together once they receive approval from the school district. In the worst case scenario, you might have to help with the paperwork process, but for the most part, they should be able to do it all for you. Once everything's been established, you should then be able to start submitting your retirement contributions. Now, one other pushback you might run into, and I've only run into it once, is sometimes the people in payroll will say, we need a board approval for this kind of thing. Now, I've opened a lot of school districts, including the big ones, West Valley, Yakima, Richland, Pasco. Not once have any of those big districts ever asked me for board approval. It's only a decision that someone in payroll or the business manager in most cases make to just add a vendor, right? We're just adding a provider. We're not altering the plan here, making anything crazy. We're just adding another option to save into. The only person that's ever pushed back and said you need board approval was Cleellum, I believe. And really, I think it was maybe just they didn't really want to deal with it or didn't want to do that decision. So they kind of brushed it off, said, oh, we'll bring it up in the next board meeting. That was back in 2018. To date, still not an option. So if someone says, hey, we need board approval, you might want to push back on them and be like, do you really need this? And if so, just make sure you stay on them so it actually gets approved. Otherwise, you're going to brush it off because they really don't see or have any incentive to add another provider to their already extensive list of 403B options. Right? So that's kind of the step-by-step what you need to do to establish a 403B plan in your school district if you want more options. If you have any questions in the process, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll be happy to help you guys out. I'll get you guys next week. Remember that your future depends on what you do today.